I am a good fighter. I am a good fighter. I am a good fighter.
Drugs in animation is interesting.
I just want to shake some sense into you kids that are using drugs and thinking about using.
There's been plenty of PSAs warning about the dangerous effects of drugs. Which kinds? Well, they would pick some of the soft stuff to propagandize, like
Marijuana.
Give me that.
or some of the hardcore stuff, like
This is crack.
Rock on!
But the main thing was the same with all these misguided PSAs.
Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs.
They had a good heart in trying to keep kids away, even though I think by now America is probably more addicted to substances than ever thanks to Dare. But that's politics for another channel. They come at the problem from many angles, with animation even throwing its hat into the ring starting in the 80s, with the Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue special. A TV special basically mandated by the American government to convince the youth that drugs will ruin their lives, even though most kids wouldn't know what drugs were unless you show it to them like this and the Dare program did. Also, the fact that the US government introduced crack to the black neighborhoods that didn't have a problem with hard drugs in the first place. Look y'all, there was no way I was gonna talk about this stuff without clowning this farce of a government. Now it fucked up my community.
Y'all ain't ready for me today.
But there's 1,000 different videos that roasted this thing to pieces. There's no reason for me to be clowning on it as hard as possible. But in the 90s, even beyond, there was a shift in how they wanted to teach about drugs to kids in cartoons. Some came at things in a way that was more realistic than the Reefer Madness method that played the past PSAs, and I wanted to cover those episodes in specials. These were episodes that didn't really directly talk about drugs, but they got a message across about their effects and how some can exploit those effects. These range from stuff like Powerpuff Girls, Hey Arnold, Jimmy Neutron, and even Peanuts if you can believe that. So get your best blunt out and let's dive into when cartoons get addicted.
Yeah? What do you want? You stranger!
She said a swear.
Powerpuff Girls was already a show that liked to go above other shows. I mean, little girls committing dismemberment of evildoers was already pushing things back then. But they wanted to show just how different they can be when it came to the kids and their problems in the show. For one episode, the drug allegory takes a bit of a backseat to a different but equally if not more important lesson. The episode Mojo Jones and Fuck! Why the fuck did they let them come up with that name? It follows a group of 90s cliches, kindergartners walking the streets. Now, Townsville clearly is not a city of sense, because Jesus Christ, how do you just let these kids just walk about? Just look at their mayor.
You need to take your toaster to a factory authorized service center and have it professionally serviced by a qualified technician.
Mayor want toast!
They run into Mojo, who's selling dope to kids now because trying to rule the world's not paying the bills. Just look at these two.
I have put up with this bullshit for too long.
Bullshit?
You are the syphilis to everything I've worked so hard for.
Mojo gives them their first dose, which they have fun with for a minute till it wears off, even though it's not supposed to. Mojo does the typical scheme to give them a little bit to get them hooked on it. They go get more, but now there's a caveat. Mojo tells them they have to destroy the Powerpuff Girls, the girls they were absolute fans of just a few moments ago, just to be able to get more Chemical X. It's another tactic used by shady drug dealers where they make you pay more or do more for your next fix. Of course, they have the kids going along with the plan to really lay in the message for them. But what really makes this episode different is how they tackle the drug allegory. Since the girls are made of Chemical X, they can't and shouldn't go the Reefer Madness route with pushing for banning the substance. Instead, they just warn about going to strangers for the stuff. The girls make the point that Mojo tampered with that batch of Chemical X, which was hinted at with it wearing off in the first place.
We know you'd never hurt us on purpose.
Yeah, Mojo put some funny stuff in that so-called Chemical X, and it really messed with your heads.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
It speaks how shady sellers can mess with their inventory and get you addicted to something you didn't sign up for. Even Blossom tells Mojo that he's gonna learn what Chemical X can really do. Of course, it leads to the usual Mojo almost dying by little girl beating scene, but it's a matter of recognizing that drugs aren't inherently bad. It's just some people take things too far, which is true of anything. There are those that use drugs and are perfectly responsible. Many recreational users partake in the sticky icky and function like it's just coffee to them. For a kids show in the 90s, this hits pretty different. It managed to make people look beyond the Reefer Madness a bit. Even in the end, the kids say it was fun to have the powers saved for Mojo's bullshit. The story is more about not talking to or taking anything from strangers. which is a great lesson and one that helps better in keeping kids away from dangerous folk they don't know, especially when it comes to keeping them away from certain substances. But Powerpuff Girls surprisingly had a little more to say when it comes to how people are affected by addiction. I wasn't expecting the blanket episode to fit into my point on drug allegories, but looking back, it's very fitting. Buttercup spends the whole episode relying on this blanket she has as a motivator to fight monsters, even though previously she's handled foes without any problems. You can easily see it as someone getting addicted to performance-enhancing drugs or a substance in general to help with their job. It's effective here because the girls are too young to need any substance to help with their job, which saying out loud is actually insanity because these are 5-year-olds in the first place. They shouldn't have a job, but I digress. You see Buttercup really get attached to this blanket more than Linus from Peanuts, who we'll get to later. Her need for this blanket is a far cry from how she acted for when it was so easy to disarm and dismember a criminal or monster. You see her acting like without the blanket she's useless, which is how many who are addicted can act sometimes. They can lose their confidence in themselves and think other devices can lead them to success, or at least make you feel like you're accomplishing something when you're not. Of course, addiction varies from person to person and it's more a matter of if it's causing harm to others. In Buttercup's case, obviously it's bringing harm. Since Blossom and Bubbles, for some dumbass reason, can't handle the monster, she's leaving the town to be destroyed, which, side note, I'll admit it's pretty forced and a bit contrived that Blossom and Bubbles don't help when they're perfectly capable. It's clearly there to get Buttercup to learn a lesson. Of course, this episode wasn't made to be a full allegory to drugs, but you can see the parallels between addiction and reliance on a substance. What makes these episodes interesting is how they don't go the narc route and just tell kids to say no. Instead, they get kids to think a little more about what drugs can or addiction can do and who not to trust when it comes to it. Of course, Nickelodeon got in on things with some of their shows, and they really pushed the worst of the exploiters.
Want me to roll over? The candy's so perfect, it seems to have created a physiological need in people. Let the exploitation begin.
And I'm gonna say what nobody else is willing to say. America has a fentanyl crisis.
Jimmy Neutron has a whole episode dedicated to showing the dangers of getting your fix from someone who knows you're addicted. And worst part is, Jimmy's the dealer.
Dun 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 dun.
It's short and mostly played for laughs, but it does get across how addiction leaves you open to exploitation. Granted, it's with candy, though things weren't the same after the last time there was a candy shortage. It focuses on Jimmy creating an addictive candy just so he can be top kid in his class, but things go awry as usual with his new invention and everyone can't get enough of it. He's fucked up honestly for this because he's figured out people were addicted to it like heroin, yet he exploits them, and they go hard for their addiction, basically turning into zombies willing to hurt Jimmy just for a fix. Even his own parents are hooked on the stuff and would hurt him just for the good shit. This is different because you're basically seeing it from the perspective of the drug dealer. Jimmy sees that people are now physiologically dependent on this candy and just goes full exploiter. He eventually grows the business so much that the CIA had to get involved and take him out Escobar style. Just kidding, you know they would have hired him to wreak havoc on non-white mixed neighborhoods. Though, it comes at addiction from a softer approach as things go back to normal once Jimmy uses shock therapy to break everyone's addiction. Don't do that at all, ever. Jimmy had a conscience once he saw the consequences of his actions, which is not something many hard drug dealers would have. It shows the dangers of dealers using addicts for their own gain, like the Powerpuff Girls point out. Not really the most complex, but for kids, it did get a point across. But this goes even further with another Nickelodeon classic. Here's an indie pilot that'll get a good laugh from you. Created by Brighton Hudnell, Me and My Genie is an indie cartoon about a teenager named Omar who finds a magic lamp with a genie named Rana in it. A bunch of crazy hijinks ensue as Omar and his friends' wishes don't go well as Rana takes them literally. Rana brings them all types of chaos to Omar and his friend's life, and I'm here for it. They're a bunch of goofballs with the littlest priorities, even with a whole magical being offering free shit to them.
Our wish? We'd like to go back to bed!
Nice wish, right?
It's a fun pilot with some really good humor to it. There's a good use of sound effects that catch you off guard but enhance the joke. If you like Fairly Odd Parents as well as the genie from Aladdin with some Ed, Edd and Eddy thrown into the mix, then this is right up your alley. You can show your support over on Brighton's page and watch the other Me and My Genie shorts as well. Another episode is on the way, so be sure to show the page some love when it drops. First time black people got to animate us on our own merit, so of course the crew went all out. My biggest contention with Maya is she comes across too Disney princessy. Jimmy Neutron should hold a more major prominent place in 3D animation history just because it's like, this movie still looks pretty good. This video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. I'm someone who definitely enjoys my sleep. Who doesn't? After you've gone through a whole work day on your feet or in a seat, being able to relax in a nice bed is what anyone would want. But to do so during the day for a nap can be cumbersome, especially if you're someone a part of the nap movement and you just don't like having to deal with a lot of light. That's why I'm glad Manta Sleep gave me their sleep mask. This mask is an incredible sleep aid that can get you through some rough nights.
Oh yeah.
The bad kind, obviously. With the Manta Sleep Mask, it has these eye cups specifically made for blocking out light, leaving you to get those precious hours for your beauty sleep. You don't have to worry about any light getting through at all. Even when you wake up, you'll feel like it's still dark out. And no matter what position you sleep in, be it on your back or on your side or stomach, the mask will stay on, thanks to the adjustable strap you can fit to your comfort. But you might be thinking, what about noise? Well, Manta Sleep has you covered with their white noise machine. A nice piece of tech with a cool assortment of background noises to dream away to. You can get your hands on these awesome sleep helpers and more over on the Manta Sleep website. You'll even find more stuff from them like earplugs, pillows, or even the other sleep mask accessories like the steam or cold eye cup attachments to help you get the best night's sleep. Using the code THOUGHTS, you can get 10% off your purchase of the sleep mask or any other accessory on their website. This is an amazing offer for something you're definitely going to get a lot out of. Head on over to Manta Sleep's website to get your own mask and white noise machine and let your dreams carry away. I don't know why you dream of that, but thanks to Manta Sleep for the sponsorship, and now on to the video.
You want to stop eating chocolate.
Yeah, I really do. I need to get off chocolate. No more chocolate.
But that's what you do. Eat chocolate. That's your name. Chocolate boy.
I know, but I need to get off chocolate. You lie! You lie!
Leave it to Hey Arnold to get into some heavy shit with the allegory. This show had multiple times when they wanted to showcase substance abuse. One of them is the biggest explanation for Helga's problems. These episodes really stuck with me because they showed the horrors of addiction without sugarcoating it. What makes the Chocolate Boy episode potent is how it showcases what addiction, withdrawal, and road to recovery can look like. Chocolate Boy gets hit with a bet for a big bag of chocolate by the neighborhood bullies, saying he has to stop eating chocolate for 2 weeks. He enlists Arnold's help without telling him why he wants to get clean, leading to betrayal and losing oneself. Now, you would expect with a cartoon for kids they'd soften up a bit, but nope. This boy's withdrawals hit hard. He's fiending so hard, he starts eating ants off the ground. That's a different level of fiending, people. The bet blows up in Chocolate Boy's face when he wins, but instantly runs out and needs more from Wolfgang, leading him to dancing for food thrown on the ground or even just crawling in a dumpster to try to find any scrap of chocolate. This whole moment of Chocolate Boy hitting rock bottom feels so real.
What the hell was that?
They don't shy away from the sense of shame addicts can feel when they finally notice the negative impact it's having on them, how easy to exploit they are by the worst kind of people. This makes Chocolate Boy actually put in the work to quit his addiction, having Arnold help him even though he betrayed his trust earlier. They even get down to the root of why he eats chocolate so much, with it having to do with his nanny that introduced him to chocolate, but as a nice treat. Sadly, he stopped being able to see her and got lost in sadness and drowned his sorrows in chocolate. This revelation presents a common thing many drug addicts go through. They do it more as an escape from past trauma they haven't fully dealt with. Chocolate Boy never got to have a goodbye with his nanny, who clearly cared a lot for him, so he lost himself in this one connection to her, or something that can help make him feel connected to her. much like many substances. That's a layer to addiction that's often ignored when it comes to these PSAs. Many addicts do drugs to get away from pain that needs healing. Sometimes it doesn't have to be that they need to fully quit, just cut back before it becomes a problem, which we'll get to in the last part. Though I'll admit it's a bit annoying they end on a joke with Chocolate Boy getting hooked on another thing. It's just a bit of the 90s anti-commitment leaking into the 2000s where they don't do much since it's a sitcom. But the episode is a great example of showing the dark side to addiction as well as the road to recovery without taking down the substance. And now we get to basically the poster child of substance abuse in Hey Arnold.
Oh, I slept so good, I feel so rested.
It's 9:30 in the morning.
Of course, we couldn't talk about addiction in Hey Arnold without going over Miriam, Helga's drunkard of a mom, literally a walking allegory for alcohol abuse. They censor it by just saying she drinks smoothies and has an unhealthy attachment to her blender, but we all know what she's putting in those smoothies. Helga on the Couch does give a good perspective on the effects substance abuse can have on a family, particularly alcohol abuse. A new child psychiatrist joins the school and sees Helga is not in a good place when she witnesses her hitting Brainy. So she calls Helga into an appointment and we learn the truth to Helga's aggression as well as her unhealthy love for Arnold. Although it's not outright stated and Miriam doesn't take full blame here with Bob being neglectful as well, her smoothie addiction is definitely a detriment to Helga's well-being. I mean, this little girl started preschool by herself in the rain with no coat. Guarantee you everyone who watched this episode wanted to knock some sense into those two parents. This level of neglect can easily make someone resentful towards life, not to mention botch their social skills. No one socially adjusted has a model of someone's head made of gum. It also is what leads her to be so violent towards everyone else because nobody was nice to her other than Arnold, and she had to fend for herself. And that's the tragedy of the neglect. But on Miriam's side, it's because of substance that she's so neglectful. You constantly see Miriam throughout the show basically out of it. She's sleeping throughout the day, extra clingy to her blender, and totally neglectful of her second child. You can look at the context clues about Miriam's alcoholism to figure out why she drinks. She dropped everything to marry her husband, Bob, as she said in the Olga Gets Married episode. It's pretty easy to fall into a depression when you're stuck at home all day. Miriam represents that housewife who got stuck with a husband that really couldn't care too much about being a husband or even a dad really. You see Miriam is capable of so much on her own, like in the Beeper Queen episode. She takes over Bob's beeper business no problem. For all you young ones, a beeper was a little device that let you notify someone. Basically prehistoric texting. It's tragic to see Miriam and Helga could have a healthy relationship if she didn't have Bob weighing her down. If Bob pulled his weight probably with taking care of his family, Miriam wouldn't feel like the need to drink. You see Miriam can do the job, but sadly she takes on the full thing, which means no attention for Helga. Again, Miriam does have a bit of nuance to not go for an individualistic life.
I can be in charge and independent any old time, but I've only got right now to be a better mom, and that's what I'm gonna do.
It truly sucks that Miriam and Helga's relationship is blocked by Miriam's drinking. They could connect and Miriam could acknowledge her faults and own up to them, as well as put Bob in his place and make him take care of his damn daughter. Middle fingers up to Nickelodeon for passing on that Pataki spinoff. Thankfully, Miriam isn't portrayed as a total lost cause, just someone who clearly needs some support, especially for her husband. Not to mention how she sobers up when her other daughter Olga comes up, making it pretty clear that she can do better, but sadly doesn't feel happy enough when Olga is not around. You can interpret Miriam seeing herself in Olga since Olga is the more successful daughter. All of her potential goals lie within her eldest daughter. Miriam really is tragic, but you understand her plight. Her husband doesn't really help much, her eldest is out of the home, and her youngest daughter became self-reliant due to neglect. Miriam clearly just uses her smoothies as a means to numb the pain of her life going nowhere. But things don't stop here when it comes to addiction, for the biggest poster boy for it may have the most important message around it. Linus from Peanuts is the perfect example of healthy addiction. For decades, he's had that blanket, and it's come to be a problem only to those around him, especially his sister Lucy, but not in the way that you think. Everyone except for Charlie has a problem with Linus and his blanket, even though he doesn't bother anyone with it. It's an addiction that he mostly keeps to himself. Everyone finds some reason to make his addiction about them. Hell, even Snoopy gotta be a hoe about it. Just straight up stalks the boy until he can get his hands on that blanket.
Hey, Linus, guess who's back? Ah!
I don't wanna lose my pride, but I'ma fuck me up a bitch.
This constant pestering finally gets called out in 2011's Happiness is a Warm Blanket, Charlie Brown, a special that was the last one before the movie came out. The quick rundown is Linus and Lucy's grandma is visiting, but she, like others, thinks Linus is too attached to his blanket and plans on cutting it up when she arrives. So Linus must keep his blanket secret while his grandma's in town. Right off the bat, Linus is going through it. When Lucy just washes his blanket for a few minutes, Linus is fiending hard.
Oh, I'll never last until dinner. I have hot and cold flashes. My eyes won't focus. I gotta have that blanket. I'm cracking up.
My man's acting like his body's gonna stop. This gotta be the most addicted to his blanket we've seen him. He can't spend 2 seconds away from it. Even when he tells others to help him kick his habit, he can't resist. Lucy takes it upon herself to force Linus to go cold turkey, which is not best with actual addicts depending on the substance. Quitting gradually can be much better. Fair warning, if you're trying to get off a substance or a friend's trying to get off a substance, it's better to do gradual than just cold turkey. Hell, this little boy says his nervous system crashed out on him. That's the type of addiction you can't quell by just stopping. Of course, throughout the years, we've seen Linus have insecurities about the world around him. Hell, you can't walk around with the most insecure boy on earth without having something up with you. But here's where I think it tackles it directly and makes peace with it. Linus doesn't really make it difficult for people to be around when he has his blanket. He just has his own mental crisis, which can be kinda haunting sometimes. Fuck, man. What is humanity? But Linus's addiction to his blanket was his to bear and no one else's. His addiction helps him feel good about the world without hurting it. The special's point is about certain devices or addictions and even about those who use recreationally. They don't deserve scrutiny for their habits if it's not bothering anyone. I do like how Charlie is with Linus through his withdrawals. Be it helping with impractical solutions Linus cooks up or just helping sleep through the first few nights of withdrawals. Chuck sticks through it thick and thin with his friend. It reinforces their friendship while making a point about actually being there for an addicted friend on their terms. Linus's addiction isn't stopping because of his own free will, it's because everyone else wants him to stop, not need, wants. It all comes to a head when Snoopy snatches the blanket again, but drags Linus along, wreaking havoc on the neighborhood. It wasn't Linus's fault, but the kids all get mad at the blanket. Linus finally lets everyone that's been bitching at him have it.
Who among you doesn't have an insecurity? Who among you doesn't depend on someone or something to help you get through the day?
He was right to point out how everyone needs something to get them through the day. Lucy and Sally literally can't go one day without flirting with two boys who constantly tell them to get the fuck on. Schroeder can't stop playing his piano, and it gets across an important part that I think many people forget when it comes to addiction. If it's not hurting anyone, including the addict, why does it need to stop? Everyone has their devices to help them through the day. Should those people also stop? Linus' security blanket is just a way for him to feel safe in a world that doesn't make sense to him, and it's just kind of crashing around him. Which, let's face it, with the sundowning pedo in office, do you really feel safe right now? Many addicts or even self-medicated people have insecurities about life, and their devices help them through, just like many coffee, alcohol, or cigarette smokers. It makes the point that sometimes people are going through a rough time and they need something to take the edge off. Now obviously Charles Schulz didn't intend for that blanket to have a secret connection to drugs. There would have been comic strip burnings if he and his team were doing that. It's obviously not an allegory to drugs fully, but it's more a point to make about people and their vices and not being a problem for others. That's the biggest point that connects these drug allegories, that many of these purposefully or accidentally didn't want to just tell people about how bad drugs or addiction is. It's more about bringing attention to how drugs affects those that use them and those around them, recognizing that they are a part of life and teaching about how to deal with them sensibly. These episodes and specials broke the stereotypes of addiction and drug use by showing that it's real, but not always harmful. Of course, they won't go over the real issue being the American government waging an idiotic and failed war on drugs that devastated black neighborhoods and destroyed South American and African countries, as well as put drugs even more in the limelight than it has been before, leading to more people being addicted to substances, including the white people they were trying so hard to protect, as well as the failed healthcare system that can't take care of its citizens, so people look for alternatives like street drugs. Look, y'all clicked on a video about drugs and kids cartoons. You boo-booed a fool for thinking it wasn't gonna get real. But that's just a thought.